Hi, and welcome to Late Talk Podcast. If you're listening to this right now, maybe it's late where you are. Maybe you can't sleep. Maybe your body is tired, but your mind is like, nope, we're still thinking. I'm Aura, and this is the very first episode of our podcast. It feels a bit scary to start, but also really special, because it honestly started with nights where I just couldn't switch off my brain.
And I'm Myra. If you're here, we already love you a little bit because you chose to spend your time with two girls who definitely don't have everything figured out. We are not here as coaches or experts. We're just two overthinking girls who decided to turn our 2 a.m. conversations into something you can listen to when you feel alone with your thoughts.
Exactly. I always imagine this podcast like a late night call. You know, when you're in your bed, the lights are off, and suddenly you start thinking about your whole life, your choices, your future, your relationships, your mistakes, all at once. I used to have those moments in silence, just me and my brain arguing. At some point I thought, what if I press record instead? What if someone, somewhere, feels exactly like this and needs to hear that they're not the only one?
And the funny thing is, when you told me that idea, I was having the same kind of nights. Like, I also had this feeling of being stuck in my head all the time. On social media, like, everyone seems confident, productive, successful, glowing. And I was there in my pajamas, overthinking everything. So when you said late talk, it immediately made sense. We were already having these deep talks together, just without a microphone.
Maybe we should tell them a little bit about who we are before we dive into all the chaos inside our heads. So, I'm Aura. I'm in my 20s, still in that weird zone between I should be an adult and I still feel lost most of the time. From the outside, my life looks okay. I study, I work, I post some things, I smile. But inside, it's very different. I feel everything strongly. Small comments can stay in my mind for days. I question myself a lot. I want to do something meaningful, but I'm also afraid to fail. I think that's a big part of why this podcast exists.
And I relate to that so much. I'm Myra, also in my 20s, also in that I should have my life together, but I really don't stage. I worry a lot about the future. Am I on the right path? Am I wasting time? Am I late compared to everyone else? Some nights I felt like I was the only one panicking quietly in my room while the rest of the world was just living. So when you came with this idea, I felt less crazy. I realized, okay, I'm not the only one thinking like this. And if we are too, then maybe there are thousands who feel the same.
I think that's really the heart of Late Talk. This feeling of I'm not the only one. I don't want this to be a place where we tell people what to do. I want it to be a place where we say, hey, we're confused too. We're scared too. We also cry in the shower sometimes and then laugh 5 minutes later. We're not perfect, but we're honest. If someone listening right now feels lost or behind or not good enough, I want them to feel a little bit less alone by the end of this episode.
Yes, and I also want this podcast to feel calm. There's already so much noise everywhere. Advice, rules, pressure, productivity, drama. Here, we don't want noise. We want soft honesty. We want to talk about mental health, identity, friendship, love, faith, studies, work, but in a way that feels like a warm light in a dark room, not a spotlight judging you. You don't have to be fixed to listen to us. You're allowed to be a mess. We are too.
So, in this first episode, we're going to talk about the nights that created this podcast. Those moments when we felt completely lost, when everyone else was sleeping and our thoughts were screaming. We'll share what was going on in our heads, how we dealt with it or didn't, and why we finally decided to create a space where we can talk about all of that openly.
If you're still here, maybe it's because some part of you recognizes yourself in what we're saying. So here's what I want you to do while you listen. You can sit in your bed, drink tea, walk, or just stare at the ceiling like we do. But try to remember this. You're not weird because you feel too much. You're not failing because you don't have everything figured out. You're just human on your own timeline.
All right, let's really start. In the next part, I'm going to tell you about one specific night where I felt completely lost and overwhelmed, and how that moment pushed me to finally say, okay, enough. I need to talk about this. Maybe you'll see yourself in that story. Maybe it will just make you feel like you have a friend in the same chaos. Either way, welcome to Late Talk Podcast. I'm Aura.
And I'm Myra. Thank you for being here with us in this very first block. Take a deep breath, stay with us, and let's go a little deeper in the next part.
So, let's talk about those nights. You know, the ones where you turn off the light, you try to sleep, and suddenly your brain opens every single file in your life. For me, it often starts with something small. Maybe I see one post on social media, or I remember one sentence someone said. And then, in the dark, that small thing becomes huge. I start asking myself, am I doing enough? Am I wasting my time? Am I on the wrong path?
Yes. For me, it's similar. It can be a normal day, nothing dramatic. And then at night, boom. My mind starts going, why are you still here? Why are you not further in life? Look at what other people are doing. And the worst part is, there's no one to interrupt that. During the day, at least you have noise, people, tasks, distractions. But at night, it's just you and your thoughts. And they can be very cruel sometimes.
Exactly. I remember one night in particular. I had worked all day, I was exhausted, and I thought I would fall asleep immediately. But as soon as I closed my eyes, a thought came. You're behind. Other people your age are already so much further than you. And then my brain started showing me a slideshow. People getting married, buying houses, starting businesses, traveling, having perfect careers. And I was just lying there thinking, what am I even doing with my life?
I've had that slideshow too. It's like your mind becomes a toxic PowerPoint presentation of everybody else's life. And the worst thing is, we know that what we see online is not the full truth, but at 2 a.m., logic doesn't work anymore. Feelings feel like facts. You don't think this is just Instagram. You think this is proof that I'm late, I'm wrong, I'm not enough.
Yes, exactly. And then, the shame comes. Because it's not only I feel behind, it's also, I shouldn't feel like this. I should be grateful. I should be stronger. Other people would love to have my life. So you feel bad for feeling bad. And that creates even more pressure in your chest. I remember that night, I actually sat up in my bed and thought, if someone could hear the way I talk to myself right now, they would be shocked. I would never speak like that to a friend. Never. But to myself, nonstop.
That's such an important point. If we wrote down our 2 a.m. thoughts and read them as if they were messages to a friend, we would say, wow, this is abusive. But because it's in our own head, we think it's normal or we think it's motivation. Like, if I'm hard enough on myself, maybe I'll finally change. But it doesn't work. It just makes you feel smaller and more paralyzed.
Yes. And I think that's when the idea of talking out loud started to feel like a survival tool for me. That night, instead of staying in my head, I opened my voice recorder and I just started speaking. I said everything I was thinking, that I felt late, that I was scared, that I didn't know what success even meant for me, that I was tired of pretending I was okay all the time. And something interesting happened. The moment I heard my own voice saying those thoughts, they already sounded a little less true.
Wow, that's powerful. I had a similar moment, but for me, it was writing. One night, I wrote everything down in my notes app. Every fear, every I'm not enough, every I'm behind. And when I looked at it the next day, it felt like reading someone else's words. I could see how hard I was on myself. I realized if a friend wrote this to me, I would hug her, not judge her. That's when I started to think that maybe we need witnesses. People who can look at our thoughts and say, this is too heavy for one person to carry alone.
Yes. And that's what I want Late Talk to be. Not a place where we pretend we're always positive, always productive, always healing, always glowing. but a place where we can say, sometimes I feel like a failure. Sometimes I don't know who I am. Sometimes I'm scared of the future. And instead of getting an answer like, just be positive, we get, I feel that too. Let's sit with it for a moment.
Exactly. Because the truth is, feeling lost is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're in the middle of change. Nobody feels lost when everything is fixed and decided. You feel lost when you're questioning, when you're growing, when you're realizing that the life you dreamed of when you were 15 doesn't match who you are now. It's uncomfortable, but it's also a part of becoming yourself. And if tonight is one of those nights for you, you're in your bed or in your room and your thoughts are loud, I want you to imagine that you're not alone there. Imagine you're sitting at the table with us with a warm drink, just listening. You don't have to answer, you don't have to be interesting, you don't have to be productive. You're allowed to just at least be a person who feels a lot, and that is okay.
In the next block, we're going to talk a bit more about what we want this podcast to become and the kind of topics we'll explore together. Mental health, friendships, love, faith, identity, studies, work, all the messy things that make our 20s so intense. But before that, I just want to say one last thing for this part. If nobody told you today that they're proud of you for simply trying, I am.
And I am too. You're doing your best with what you know, with what you have, and with the emotional tools you've learned so far. That's already a lot. So take a deep breath, maybe drink some water, and stay with us for the next part of this episode.
Okay, for this last part of the episode, we thought it would be nice to do something a bit different. Instead of talking about the podcast, we're going to ask each other a few real deep questions. The kind of questions you usually ask your best friend at 2 a.m.
Yes, no script, no perfect answer, just honesty. If you're listening, you can also think about your own answers while we talk. Maybe you'll discover something about yourself too.
All right, I'll start. Myra, here's my first question. When do you feel the most alone?
I think I feel the most alone when something good happens to me, and I don't know who to tell first. Like when I get good news, or I achieve something small and I open my phone and I hesitate. I don't know who really cares, who will actually be happy for me, not just react with an emoji. Like in those moments, I feel like, do I have a real safe person, or do I just have contacts? That's when the loneliness hits the hardest.
Wow. I relate to that so much. It's crazy how loneliness doesn't only show up when things are bad, but also when things are good and you don't know who to share them with. Okay, your turn. Ask me something.
All right, Aura, my question for you is, what is something you're scared to admit about yourself?
Ouch. Okay. I think I'm scared to admit how afraid I am of wasting my life. I'm scared of waking up one day and realizing that I lived on autopilot, that I did what people expected from me, but not what I truly wanted. And sometimes, that fear makes me freeze. Instead of moving, I overthink. I imagine every scenario, every risk, every opinion, and I do nothing. So, yeah, I'm scared of wasting my life, and at the same time, I'm scared that my fear of wasting my life makes me actually waste it.
That's painfully real. And I think many people listening will understand exactly what you mean. It's like being stuck between, I don't want a boring life, and I don't want to destroy everything by making a mistake. Okay, next question.
Yes. My next question for you is, what is one thing you secretly wish people understood about you?
I wish people understood that just because I look calm and composed doesn't mean I'm not struggling. Sometimes I'm very good at holding it together in public. I smile, I listen, I help other people. But there are days when inside I'm completely exhausted, anxious, or sad, and no one sees it. So when people say, "You're so strong, you're always fine," I feel misunderstood. I don't want to be the strong one all the time. Sometimes I just want to be allowed to fall apart a little bit.
I feel that too. It's like people only see one version of us, the version that's functioning. They don't see the nights, the breakdowns, the doubts. Maybe that's also why we wanted to record this podcast, so that there's at least one place where we don't have to pretend to be okay all the time.
Yes. And I hope that if someone listening to this also feels like the strong one in their family or in their friend group, they can use this space to finally let go a little. Your turn again.
All right, here's a big one. What is one thing you really want from life, even if you're afraid to say it out loud?
Wow, I think I really want a life where I feel peaceful inside. Not perfect, not rich, not famous, just genuinely peaceful. I want to wake up most days feeling like I'm in the right place, doing something that matters to me, surrounded by people who actually love me and not the image of me. I'm afraid to say it out loud because I don't know if it's realistic, but that's what I want. A life that feels honest and peaceful, not just impressive.
I love that so much. And I don't think it's unrealistic. Maybe it's not easy, but I think it's possible. And maybe that's what we're trying to build little by little. Not a perfect life, but a more honest one. Okay, last question, and I'll answer it too. If you could tell one thing to the person who is listening right now, what would you say?
I would say, you're not weird because you think a lot. You're not weak because you feel deeply. And you don't have to pretend to be okay if you're not. You're allowed to be in progress. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to be both proud of yourself and disappointed at the same time. You're human, and that's already a lot.
I think I would say, please don't judge your whole life based on one bad season. Sometimes it feels like, this is it. This is who I am forever. But it's not true. You're still changing. You're still learning. The fact that you're here, listening to a podcast about late-night thoughts, already means you care about your life. You want to understand yourself. And that's beautiful.
So if tonight is heavy for you, let this be your sign to be a little softer with yourself. You don't have to fix everything before you sleep. You just have to breathe and survive this day.
We're going to end this first episode here. If you felt less alone for even a few minutes, that already makes this worth it for us. If you want to support us and stay for the next episodes, you can subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who also overthinks at night.
And if you feel like it, leave a comment answering one of the questions we asked each other today. For example, when do you feel the most alone? Or what is something you're scared to admit about yourself? We'll read them, and maybe some of them will inspire future episodes.
Thank you for being here for the very first Late Talk. I'm Aura.
And I'm Myra.
Good night, or good morning, depending on when you're listening. We'll talk again very soon.